welcome to the deep dive. Today we're delving into one of America's most enduring mysteries, the JonBenét Ramsey case.
It really is incredible, isn't it, how some cases just lodge themselves in the public mind and stay there.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we're working from a really comprehensive case report. It gives us a detailed timeline analysis, the whole thing.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, I think, is JonBenét herself, a 6-year-old beauty pageant winner, found dead in her Boulder home December 26, 1996.
Right.
And that detail, the beauty pageant winner part, that maybe seems small, but it just ignited this media frenzy, really shaped how everyone saw the case from day one.
Definitely amplified things. So, okay, our mission today is to kind of unpack the key moments, the evidence, maybe the missteps too, that keep this case unsolved after all this time. Give you the core insights, really.
Right. Where do we start? The discovery itself.
Yeah, let's set the scene. Morning of December 26, 1996. What happened first?
Well, it kicked off with Patsy Ramsey, JonBenét's mom, making this frantic 911 call. Said her daughter was missing.
Okay.
And she'd found this ransom note, a really bizarre, long one, asking for $118,000.
A long note. Interesting.
Yeah, very. And then just hours later, her father, John, he finds her body down in the basement.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah, she'd been bound, gagged, killed by a blow to the head, and then strangled. They used a groat made from one of Patsy's paintbrushes and some cord.
A paintbrush.
And investigators also confirmed later that she'd been sexually assaulted.
Okay, so immediate chaos, clearly. And this leads us to, I think, a really critical point, a foundational problem, maybe. The crime scene itself.
Oh, absolutely. The initial handling or mishandling by Boulder police, it was problematic.
How so?
Well, friends, family. They were allowed to basically wander around the house.
Seriously, while it was an active crime scene.
Yeah, potentially contaminating everything. Crucial evidence could have just walked out the door or been wiped away. And the Ramseys themselves, they weren't separated immediately, weren't formally interviewed right away.
That seems like forensics 101, doesn't it? Separate potential witnesses or suspects.
Exactly.
Yep.
And that single initial procedural mess-up, it fundamentally compromised the whole investigation. It's like, the golden hour in medicine. This was the forensic equivalent, and it was lost.
It just casts a shadow over everything that follows, I imagine.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to that ransom note you mentioned.
Right, the long one.
Yeah, 2.5 pages long, written on a notepad from inside the house using one of their pens.
Okay. Inside job vibes, maybe.
Well, that's what it suggested to investigators. And the amount, $118,000. Very, very close to a bonus John Ramsey had just received.
That's quite specific.
It is. So these details, right away, they sort of pointed suspicion inwards towards the family, created this immediate contradiction, kidnapping or something else.
And the autopsy complicated things even more.
It did. Cause of death.
Yeah.
Blunt force trauma and strangulation. The garrote made from Patsy's brush. John Ramsey, he knew knots, had sailing experience. Could explain how the garrote was tied.
Okay.
But then, pineapple. Found in JonBenét's stomach during the autopsy.
Pineapple. Why is that significant?
Because both John and Patsy said they didn't know she'd eaten any pineapple. Didn't remember giving her any. So another unexplained detail, right there in the house, shortly before her death.
Just layers upon layers of weirdness.
Exactly. And with that initial chaos, the weird note, the pineapple, it's not really surprising that suspicion quickly fell on the Ramseys.
And their actions didn't help, did they? Getting lawyers involved so quickly.
Right. They lawyered up, as people say. Delayed formal interviews for months, which, understandable from one perspective, but it definitely fueled public and police suspicion.
I remember reading the former police chief even admitted later something like, letting them go that first day was a big mistake.
Yeah, he did. Hindsight, maybe, but it shows the impact of those early decisions.
So theories started swirling pretty fast, I bet.
Oh, yeah. All sorts. Patsy maybe snapping over a bedwetting incident, accidentally killing her, then a cover-up.
And there was that controversial one about Burke, their son, over pineapple.
That theory involved Burke, who was 9 at the time, maybe lashing out in anger, though it's important to say that's always been strongly denied and largely dismissed by many investigators.
Right. But still, enough suspicion remained that a grand jury actually voted to indict John and Patsy in '99.
They did, yes, for child abuse resulting in death.
Yeah.
But the district attorney at the time, Alex Hunter, he ultimately refused to sign the indictment, declined to press charges.
What?
Citing insufficient evidence to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in court.
Yeah. So legally, they remained uncharged, but that public suspicion lingered for years.
Until the DNA came along. That was a major shift, wasn't it?
Huge. Absolute pivotal. In 2003, testing found trace male DNA on JonBenét's underwear and leggings.
Okay. Whose was it?
That's the key. It didn't match John, Burke, or any Ramsey family member, or anyone in the CODIS database at the time. Unidentified male DNA. Wow. So an unknown person was definitely involved.
That's what the DNA indicated. And based on this, plus some other analysis, the then Boulder District Attorney, Mary Lacey, took a really public step in 2008.
What was that?
She publicly exonerated the Ramsey family, wrote them a formal letter of apology, basically saying the DNA evidence pointed away from them and towards an unknown intruder.
Exonerated by the DA. That's significant.
Yeah, very. Though not everyone in law enforcement or the public fully accepted it at the time, it was the official stance based on the forensic evidence available then.
So where does that leave things now? The family's cleared by DNA, but the case is still cold.
Well, John Ramsey, JonBenét's father, he's continued to push for more advanced DNA testing.
Like genetic genealogy, the stuff used in the Golden State Killer case.
Exactly. Using things like familial DNA, searching on items like the garrote, the clothing, trying to find relatives of the unknown male DNA profile.
And are the police doing that?
The Boulder Police Department says they're still actively investigating, pursuing leads, and consulting with DNA experts. But there's often, tension between public calls for specific new techniques and the official protocols and resource limits in handling cold cases.
Right. It's complex.
So looking at the big picture, the JonBenét Ramsey murder is still one of America's most baffling unsolved crimes. Those initial errors, especially at the crime scene, they just created this foundational problem, poisoned the well, really.
Yeah, you can't undo that initial contamination, but as you said, the DNA evidence did exonerate the Ramseys and points clearly to an unknown male.
Precisely. That unidentified DNA is the most concrete lead, pointing towards someone outside the family. And these ongoing efforts, the advanced forensic tech, they offer at least a glimmer of hope, maybe.
A hope that maybe that tiny trace could finally unlock the whole thing.
Maybe. But ultimately, the case just has this enduring grip, doesn't it? Fueled by all the media, the conflicting theories. JonBenét's story, sadly, will likely keep being debated.
Which leads us to a final thought, maybe something for you, the listener, to consider. If a crime scene is fundamentally compromised right from the very beginning, can you ever truly get definitive closure? Even with all the amazing science we have now, decades later, can you overcome that initial fatal flaw in the investigation?